All right, we are live. We were working out a couple of technical bugs there, so we're a couple minutes past the hour, but we are happy to be with you. For everybody that's tuning in to the Fire Engineering and ISFSI Focus on Training Humpday Hangout. As always, we appreciate everybody tuning in. My name's Brad French. I'm a captain in Dayton, Ohio, and also work heavily with the ISFSI, a former board member as of FDIC several weeks ago, and we have a lot of our typical co-hosts on today, minus Steve Pegram, and they'll all introduce themselves as we go here over the next hour or so, talking about rapid intervention teams. So we're going to talk about RIT training and all. Well, I don't know that we can talk about all the different aspects of that, because certainly we could easily fill an hour just scratching the surface on the importance of rapid intervention team training, the importance of RIT on the Fireground, the importance of everybody being very, very competent at all of those skills, and their importance both in recruit training and new training, and continuing throughout everyone's career. So we'll go all kinds of different avenues with the RIT training. Also, if we have time, we'll talk about a somewhat parallel but separate item, which is self-survival skills, right? Oftentimes we talk about in terms of us going to try to make a save of a fellow firefighter that's downed or trapped or lost, disoriented, what have you. And then there is, of course, the other side of that, which is the self-survival. Things that we can do as far as bailing out a windows and calling maydays, and some of the data related to the Mayday project that's been circulating in the fire service over the past several years as a result of some of Don Abbott's research. And so we'll see where this conversation takes us this morning. We might not be able to cover all those bases, and that's okay. As we move forward over the next hour, if you want to keep in mind hashtag FE Talk on social media. I'll try to keep an eye on Twitter, and the folks at Fire Engineering, Clarion in the background, will try to keep an eye on that as well. And if you do have questions, we'll try to get them answered as we move forward over the course of the next hour. We were potentially going to have our, as I always call him, our elder statesman, our chief fire engineering editor-in-chief, Bobby Halton, and educational director for FDIC. He is actually teaching today. Chief Steve Shaw down in Florida is in a class, and I'll let him speak to that a little bit later, is in a class that Mike Dugan and Bobby Halton are actually teaching. So we might be able to pull, it wouldn't surprise me maybe at some point in the next hour to see Bobby stick his face in there, but we'll have to see how it goes. So with that being said, I will do a little bit of what Chief Halton usually does, which is talk a little bit about FDIC. We could talk a whole hour about wrapping up FDIC, right? But it was a tremendously successful event. I think I just saw an email a little bit ago that the attendance was over 35,000. So tremendous numbers. Everybody was. It's always fantastic to see all the familiar faces there, including everybody on this Humpday Hangout today. And keep in mind, for those of you that want to get in the game, you can't get there if you don't try, right? And everybody has their successes and failures, and everybody gives it a shot. And sometimes you get turned down, sometimes you get accepted, sometimes you somewhere in the middle, a proposal accepted, maybe one rejected. Maybe if you've had no luck so far, keep on trying, keep at it, and you'll get there eventually. And the call for presentations for FDIC 2020 is open right now. Go to the website at FDIC.com. That call for presentations is open through June 14th. So I certainly encourage everybody to do so. And I guarantee everybody on this panel today will be doing the same. So with that being said, I think just very briefly, we'll run down the line, and fellow panel members and instructors, introduce yourselves. And did you have any final thoughts on FDIC? What did you leave with this week, just as we come off the heels of the most important event in our industry? Aaron Heller?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me again. I'm Aaron Heller. I'm a captain in Hamilton, New Jersey, and I own On Scene Training Associates. My biggest FDIC takeaway there again was probably just the level of students that we saw, the level of brotherhood that we shared. We had, in our HOT program, we ran, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere between 150 and 200 students in the 2 days. And they were just into it, and they were from all over. We had folks from Canada that came down, and from Europe. It was just really cool to see, and the conversations that we had, the sharing of information that FDIC is, And again, the sharing of the brotherhood at night and all the different things that we went and saw and did, and all the booths, some cool new technology that we're looking into and stuff that I brought back to our firehouse. So yeah, man, it was great. I'm writing our proposal for next year and hoping we get back. But it's just, there's nothing like it. And the numbers, 5,000 to 6,000 hot students is what Ginger just sent out. That's pretty freaking amazing in my eyes, that you can pull that off in 2 days. And to see the work those logistics guys did, they just kicked butt, man. It was really cool.
That's awesome, and I'm glad to hear that your class went very well, Aaron, and absolutely really hope to see you back there next year. In fact, maybe I'll try to take it. I'd like to get over there. I'd like to get over there earlier in the week and start doing some more of the hop training. I've just, in terms of commitments and things like that, oftentimes end up focusing mid to end of the week, and I need to make it a priority in my scheduling to get over there and take some of your guys' fantastic hot classes. Steve Shaw.
Well, I simply do not have, first of all, can you hear me okay, Brad? Okay. So I simply do not have the time in this short 1 hour segment to describe, once again, the amazing time I had in FDIC. I simply don't have the time to do that. You know how some places you go, sometimes it gets kind of stale, mundane, it almost kind of drops off. I got to tell you, every time I've been, it just gets better and better and better. And I don't know what it was about this time. It was the right people, the right time. It was mind blowing. A lot of education, a lot of networking, a lot of sharing of knowledge. I got to meet people who I've only seen once or twice on a podcast, like you guys. That was probably one of my favorite things, to see you guys finally in person. The classes were amazing as usual. Talking with authors of books that I've only read the material, and then talking to them with them afterwards, it just was amazing. In fact, I got a list here. Let me just pull this up. So I did my best to make a list for myself, a checklist. And I'm going to just show you real quick. So that's my checklist. I did not get to all the things I wanted to do this time around. I got to most people I wanted to interact with and thank and all that jazz. A lot of other things I got to do, but I just couldn't get to do it all. It was like any other time I go, there's just not enough time to do all the cool classes that are there and such. It was an amazing experience. I'm glad to have gone, and can't wait to do it again next year.
I can't wait to see you again, brother. And it was fantastic to get to run into you and chat for a little while at that ISFSI membership social on Tuesday night. Good time, and great bumping into you all week around there. Chief Tony Carroll.
Yeah. Same thing. It was a really good week for me. I had a presentation on Thursday, 2 presentations. My hour and 45-minute Mayday Monday, which I was really worried about because I've changed some stuff, to keep it topical from the last 12 months. And I had a pretty full room, got a lot of good feedback. And then right after that, went to the big room session, which with some UL guys, the panel, and that was really good. I think that the group, the audience was really into it. The group that was on the stage was into it. So that was really successful. I made some contacts for some other, there's a nonprofit guy here who's working on some firefighter health stuff. We made some contacts so we can hopefully get him out, in the fire service, get him around so everybody can kind of see what he's doing. So it was successful, really good. I can't wait to get back next year.
Agreed. And just one more quick thing, and I said it before, I'll say it again. June 14th is the deadline for presentation. So get on FDIC.com and start looking around. So with that being said, let's move on forward into our discussion for the purposes of today, which is rapid intervention team training. Very, very important skill set to have. And it's one of those things where everybody probably gets a base knowledge of certain things, maybe when they're in recruit school or drill school. But then the question is, how do you continue to move that ball down the field? When do you find time to refine those skills, to learn additional skills? I'm sure everybody on this panel has probably seen 10 different ways to do a Denver drill and things like that, right? It's always evolving. There's always more information out there and new little tricks of the trade coming along. And then, of course, we continue to, every, a handful every year of incidents where firefighters lose their lives inside burning buildings. And, of course, we always want to study those incidents and fatalities when they do happen. We all know that there are greater causes of firefighter fatalities than just inside burning buildings, and that's absolutely important to note. But when people do die in structure fires, it's incumbent upon us as instructors, right, as leaders in the fire service and officers, but as instructors, to study the heck out of those incidents, find out what happened, what went wrong, what went right, and how those pieces ended up fitting together to lead to that tragedy. And so if there's any information to glean from that and take back to our own organizations and turn that around into training, we certainly are obligated to do so. So as it relates to RIT training, I wanted to start out with just the concept of what is on your list, what is on your 6 or 8 or 10 things when you've decided within your organization, hey, we're doing a RIT refresher, or we're doing a RIT, an initial training or something like that. And maybe those two pieces look very, very different. And I'll let you guys speak to your thoughts on that. But what are your must-do things when it comes to rapid intervention team training? Aaron?
Well, yeah, I think first things first, we have to make sure that that we've addressed the fact that we actually can provide this service to others, and that's an issue. I've seen fire departments start out and say, yeah, we're going to be a RIT and we can do this, and now we're going to offer up our services, especially in the smaller areas where they're more regionalized and they've got to rely upon mutual aid, not in the big city settings. And that we have to make sure that we can actually offer this, and that we have the personnel. The equipment is fairly basic, so it's not like you have to have every piece of RIT equipment that's ever being produced or sold at, on the trade floor. But so that would be my first thing. My second thing would be, you've got to understand and go through searching for the down firefighter, locating the down firefighter, and packaging the down firefighter. Once we get those skills down, along with moving the down firefighter, those are the biggies in my eyes. Then we can move on to all the different named drills, the Nance or the Denver or, a high point anchor drill or whatever you want to do. But my keys are, first off, they've got to understand how to search. If you've got pack trackers, like, where we work, we have Scott pack trackers. So we have to make sure that our guys know how to use those properly. So that's a drill in itself. So it's the basics. It's those, let's building block all the way up. And then we'll get into the actual, the true hardcore rescue work. That's where I would start. I would go with the foundation first.
So, Aaron, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question on that, which is, you talked about using the pack tracker and having good primary search skills. Are you an advocate for a search line every time to lay that line going in, or only in a commercial setting or an industrial setting, or even in a dwelling fire? Or what are your thoughts on a tagline?
So my belief is absolutely in industrial settings or commercial settings. I'm using I need a lifeline, I feel. First, one reason, because number one, it's so easy to get lost in those buildings and get ourselves off course, especially in the search for a down firefighter, because, we're amped up a little bit differently. We're operating a little bit differently. The other thing the reason I like that is if we reach the down firefighter and now we have to get back out due to air management issues, and the next group coming in, the RIT coming in, isn't there yet, we can tag off that line, tie it to either to the victim himself or to a solid anchor point near the victim, and they can follow our line in as we're getting out. So we're saving time, and we're max efficiency in air management, which I think is probably the key. In residentials, it's a little bit different. I'm kind of torn, to be honest with you. I like the idea of that tagline for that same reason. But knowing the potential of clutter, the potential of tight rooms in smaller residentials, if it's an apartment or something of that nature, probably not as necessary. But again, if I were going to err, I think I would err on the side of caution of having that line. I think that's a great question, though.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you brought up both of the two big points that as instructors, it's so critical that we hit with our students when it comes to RIT, is that tagline is not just for us to be able to quickly find our way back out, but for that second RIT team that we all know from training and from seeing real incidents play out and from a lot of the studies and things like that. So often that second team will be required, right? If that first team has the ability to search, locate, stabilize, maybe manage manage the air supply of that firefighter. Oftentimes that by the time that's all done, an additional team may very well be required for that removal. And if they don't have to search their way around through zero visibility and can just grab that line and zip in there, just as you said, Aaron, I think you hit the nail on the head. That saves a whole lot of time in a lot of different ways. So great stuff. Steve Shaw, my understanding is that you guys just did some RIT training down there. Can you speak to that? And what are some of your must-do items for RIT training?
So in Fort Lauderdale, I'm pretty proud of this. Since becoming the chief, one of my major focuses was to increase the hands-on training that our department does. And between the team and between the inclusiveness of the operations staff and everybody working together, we've been able to do that. I'm very excited about that. So we just got done doing over 350 people in RIT training over the last 5 months. We started a night drill Mondays and Wednesday nights from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. because that's our least busy times. We had to do it at nights, which was nice for the weather and such, but we just couldn't simply do it during the day because we were too busy. So this was good in a few ways. One, the cohesiveness of this drill was great. We got a spot from the city that's being torn down actually next week, an old stadium that we decided to end up using for our RIT area. Our RIT competition team that competes at the state level and is probably going to be competing at a national level at some point in the near future, built on their own a mock-up of a prop used at statewide competitions. And in collaboration with them, they basically lent us their prop, in which we use for all 300 plus folk. It was a phenomenal collaboration, and they kind of led some of those classes. And I'm proud of that because we want to show homage to this team that does so much on their off time. We wanted to show, hey, these are our folk that are representing us out there. And this is the prop they built, and they're letting us use to train everybody. So we got a chance to use that 40 by 80 multiple paths in the structure. Your Denver drills incorporated with it, a wall breach with wires inside, up and over area. It was phenomenal. But we also had neighboring agencies attend. We had different cities like Oakland Park and different cities joining us in the training. So we got to share that love with our neighbors, which is huge because of it. The operation of this scope happens and we have multiple agencies on scene. We want to know the people. We want to know the names of the people and how they operate. This was key for that. So one thing you just asked, what is your goal? What is your focus when you're doing the RIT training? So amongst the things I just mentioned, one of the things is for us is equipment. SCBA is huge. And we kind of literally almost go down to the brass tacks when it comes to air packs. Let's go over this, guys. Let me lay out and go step by step, head to toe assessment of this SCBA. And some people are like, oh my gosh, I already know this, but some, they may not say it. They want to hear this. They maybe don't get to wear their SCBA all the time. They forget what the sounds are. They forget that the communication aspect of it isn't there when they're training like we're going to do. So they need that basic level training. But that's for me. I got to make sure they know how to use their SCBA. I want them to be experts at that thing. And I can't assume anything. I can't assume that they know how to use their equipment. Thus, we go there and use it. We went over new equipment like our new ticks, a new piece of equipment for RIT bags and whatnot. And then my favorite thing is the stress inoculation, putting them in the scenarios. Oh, by the way, you didn't realize it, but now there's a forcible entry prop there to get into the prop. Go ahead, force it. Oh, crap. So it's just a combination of the drill itself, like you mentioned, the locating, packaging, moving of the patient, the firefighter, the stress inoculation, the group think, that the camaraderie it builds. And it's like over after every drill, my crew report back to me the same thing over and over again. They get there, like, they do the drill, like, oh, okay, and they're learning, they're passing on knowledge, they're talking amongst each other. And at the end, they're updating Facebook, taking pictures, updating Twitter, big group exercise, a lot of camaraderie building. It's phenomenal. So yeah, we're very proud to have just got done with that.
Yeah, I tell you, it really struck a chord with me when you were talking about that SCBA familiarization, Chief, and how critical that is, right? I had visions in my head of that we should be, before we even get to, and I think Aaron already really spoke to this, and I think he's absolutely dead on, before we get to some of the more in vogue RIT drills, that we need to really be hitting those absolute basics, right? Those foundational things. What's that?
Something like that real quick. I think I don't mean to take more time than I'm
no.
a lot in here, but I think you're doing yourself a disservice if you assume that folk know a lot of these bits and pieces. If you do, and you start the drill, you're going to have guys focusing, our crews, guys and girls focusing on what they don't know rather than the whole operation itself. They're missing the etiquette portion jumping right into a larger drill. So that's why and just like you said, I have to make sure they know how to use the SCBA. So it's not something they're relearning in a drill where that's not the point of the drill. That's not the point. I want you to worry about the rapid intervention portion, not what is this alarm mean? Why is this alarm going off? We don't have time for that. So you got to know the basics before jumping into a larger scale drill. So I'm so glad you mentioned that.
No, absolutely, and I love the drill of just basically the kind of the field stripping and redressing of an SCBA, right? Where you send a candidate in zero visibility with their gloves on to a pile of SCBA parts that has the mass-mounted regulator disconnected and all of the straps discombobulated and some of the straps taken out and the SCBA cylinder off and all that kind of stuff, and just say, here you go, fix this. In the dark with your gloves on, make this a workable SCBA. Not that that exact thing would happen on an incident necessarily, but just gaining that level of familiarity by doing that over and over again. Yeah, that's fantastic stuff. Chief Tony Carroll, we haven't heard from you yet, sir. What's on your mind as far as must-do stuff for RIT training?
I mean, I'm kind of like an open book, right? Once a month, I produce a Mayday Monday drill. And it's funny because guys ask me here, how would you do this? Well, I'm like, well, look at this up, So the Mayday Monday thing, right? It focuses on basics. And we have so many things we need to drill on, so many things we need to practice, train with. That I'm asking that just take your Monday that you work, one of the Mondays that you work, and focus on firefighter survival. Unfortunately, that's a really big topic too, right? We got firefighter survival, and then we have firefighter rescue. So I don't know if we have time, we'll talk survival, but now we're talking rescue. So let's break that down into some real basic stuff. Obviously, what are a lot of our firefighters? How do they get killed? They run out of air. So we need to know how to put air on them. We have these great RIT packs. Even if we don't have that, we have a spare SCBA, or I have an SCBA that can give somebody air. So those are some basic skills right there. The RIT pack, again, there's been a couple of successful uses of those things. And obviously that's a low frequency, high risk kind of thing. But we need to be able to do that, blindfolded. If you look at the rescue of Captain Dowling from Houston, the Southwest in fire, that firefighter had to take his own SCBA off in order to be in a position to put the RIT pack on the captain. Are you in that? Are you ready for that? Is anybody ready for that rescue? Because in order to be ready for that rescue, you have to be really intimately involved with the RIT pack. Again, the RIT pack is so important. So that's a basic skill. I think that, yeah, we really need to get, we really need to use a search rope. Again, whether it's breadcrumbs or whether it's so that the rescue team, the next team, can come and find us. So, and if we don't use it on everyone, we might not use it on everyone. So whether it's commercial, like Aaron talked about, and use it on a house, we should use it every time. Again, just to get that this is our procedures, this is how we do it. So that one. Again, what else do we have to do? Well, maybe we have to do some forcible entry, because my team is kind of set up with RIT pack, search rope, and forcible entry tools. Because if they meet an obstacle on the way to go find that downed firefighter, they need to be able to remove it. So those are pretty basic things that we should be able to do. And again, I think it boils down to the basics. Firefighter survival starts with the basics. Now, we'll talk later about survival skills, but those are the basic RIT skills. Now, if we need to, we can now raise the bar. We can, have worry about heavy lifting. We can worry about cutting in smoke. So if we have like bars or something that we have to cut, those are drills that we can add later. But we have to be really good at those basic skills.
I love it, and that's a common theme amongst everybody here that I'm hearing, and I agree 1,000% is that there is probably risk when it comes to RIT training of diving too much into the well-known drills and things like that without making sure that we have all of that foundational stuff that leads us to that point. Those foundational skills on equipment and SCBA and proper search techniques and line deployment, as you just mentioned, Chief Carroll. And so, yeah, it's something else that I was kind of thinking about as you were talking, Chief, is the concept of mindset, right? RIT mindset, and getting people in that training environment to realize the importance of that. Whether it be through case studies, whether that be through personal stories of incidents that we've been involved in over our careers or whatever, getting those students, it's kind of that effective learning domain, right? Getting them to care about what you're about to tell them is an extremely important piece of this, because if we don't start with mindset and we don't have that killer instinct mindset as a RIT team, and we have the right attitude, we have the right tools, we are here for the right reasons, and we're 100% geared up and ready to make a rescue if necessary, right? And not treating RIT like it's, oh geez, I'm the RIT team. And we've all seen that, we've all heard that, we've all learned that. And I tell students all the time, be the RIT team that you would want if you are lost or disoriented or go through a floor or something like that, or are stuck somewhere. If you don't take RIT seriously, and I'm speaking to the company officers out there, it's really your responsibility to make sure your crews are taking this stuff seriously, right? But when you get on the scene, don't just set the saws out, start the saws. Don't just pull the pack tracker out, start it up and keep it in your hand the entire time. Don't throw one ground ladder to a front porch roof and say you're good to go on secondary egress. Get the building ladder. Go out of your way to do a good proactive job when you're RIT, because that's what you would expect if you found yourself in a position inside. And so the reason I kind of go off on that tangent is because I really think as instructors, we need to make it clear how important a good mindset and a good positive attitude is. And I think it's probably important to start out our RIT training sessions that way. So one other little plug I'll give real quickly, just for those tuning in that maybe are looking for some more specific resources. I sometimes can be a little bit of an Nfpa nerd, but at the risk of that, I will at least make sure that you are directed to Nfpa 1407. Nfpa 1407 is the standard, essentially the standard for RIT training, right? There's all kinds of, if you have no idea where to start, if you find yourself tuning in today as a training officer that's like, oh geez, I got assigned to conduct a RIT drill or something like that, no idea where to start, there's all kinds of those JPRs, job performance requirements, in 1407 that really give you at least a general blueprint as to where to start, and some drills to do, and some good foundational information to really start that RIT training process within the department.
Mayday Monday.
And lest I forget, Mayday Monday every week on fire engineering. Absolutely. No, all joking aside. All joking aside, Chief, that's great stuff. Go ahead.
May's coming up. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but we're going to highlight again a line of duty death, how that person was injured or killed in the line of duty, and then give you some tips on maybe something that we learned from that incident, and take you through a quick drill. Again, easy, not a. You don't need a training academy to do it. You'll be able to do it in the firehouse, but something to get your mind thinking about firefighter survival. One thing I would like to point out is that there aren't any experts in this. There aren't any experts in firefighter rescue. Again, most of us have really refined what we do in firefighter in training, right? In training. But if you know someone and says, hey, I'm an expert in firefighter rescue, I don't know that I want to hang out with that guy, right? I mean, you've had a lot of incidents that you had to rescue firefighters. Maybe we should worry more about RIT prevention than RIT training. But with that being said, we need to train on it. We have to train on it because like you were talking about, the mindset thing. I hope that you get to sit out in the lawn. I hope you do. But you just understand that the very next fire you go to can be the fire of the century of your career. And you're going to need to be ready if you are the rapid intervention team.
Yeah, great stuff, Chief. So I think Aaron keeps jumping on and off a little bit. For those of you that are tuning in live, I think he's having a couple of technical glitches there. So we'll gather his thoughts on all these various pieces of discussion when he gets back on. But something else that I wrote down when it comes to RIT, this is getting down into a little bit of the weeds here, but there was an incident in the fire service press a year or two ago, maybe something like that, where a firefighter was injured during a what is this drill, right? A firefighter through the floor. And that got me thinking, I don't want to speak to that specific incident, right? But when it comes to some of these higher risk, we talked a lot about the foundational skills, but when it does come to some of the slightly higher risk type of things, when we're doing a Nance drill through the floor, when we're doing a firefighter removal of using an actual firefighter, just laying there limp, unconscious out a second floor window. And then certainly as we progress into self-survival skills, into bailouts and things like that. As training officers, what are your thoughts on when and when not to incorporate a lot of different safety systems and redundancy? Do you guys oftentimes end up employing belays a lot on anything above the first floor? Or is that something that as instructors you feel comfortable working around, or have other ways of ensuring the safety of anybody in those situations? Steve, what do you think?
Okay, so as the training chief, I take full accountability and responsibility for the drills we put on. So from start, middle, end, before, after, the whole 9 yards. In regards to safety, I'm the self-proclaimed safety Nazi. I'm that guy. I really am. I have to be to a certain extent. Between the paperwork needed, the proper acquired structure paperwork needed to do for acquired structure or live burns or whatever, vital signs, so on and so forth. I've got to be that person. Specific to what you're talking about, and something you said reminded me of something. The way we're doing a drill, and you mentioned bailout. I had a captain once who's now a battalion chief doing a class, and he was teaching a bailout class. In the class were, I think, out of the 8 people in the class, 5 of them were 30+ year veterans in my department. So when they get there and they see the 12-year-on captain wanting to do a bailout class, what do you think their thoughts are? You can imagine. We can go through this all day, but it was wonderful to watch. His name is Garrett Pingle, and he's a battalion chief of our department right now. He twisted that class not to a bailout class. He made it a how not to get in trouble class. Oh, and by the way, we have this new bailout equipment. We're going to go talk about it and use it out in the bailout prop. And they loved it. He was able to get to them, and they understood. They understood why they were there. Everybody got value. They were able to give their expertise, and they actually bailed out of a window. It was amazing. I couldn't have done that back then. In regards to the specifics, the safety aspect of it, you know what? We are blessed in Fort Lauderdale to have an aggressive training program that allows us to do a lot of acquired structure work and a lot of work off of ladders and whatnot. I've got to be the safety guy when I have to. So like for us in our bailout prop, yeah, we have a system where we hook up somebody in case they do follow the belay system. We have that our ladder trucks for training and all kinds of things. I employ them. One, they're there, and you mentioned before, and Aaron, you mentioned this too. If it's not used, it won't get used. So I use it all the time. It becomes like the norm then. I want it to be the norm. I want it to be that we're taking safety seriously. Now, are there situations where I'm not going to be able to use that? Yeah, but I tell you, I usually barter on the former. I'm that person. So I when I can and there's an option to use it, I'm always a belay type guy in that scenario. So I'm just using the bailout, for example, was my first thought when you mentioned that. And well, and this is the other part of this, and I'll stop talking. I always consult with my bosses above my head. But most of the time I consult with the bosses above my head, just to get their thoughts. I have previous training chiefs who used to sit in my seat, so I'll bounce ideas off them. I'll call the training folk in my neck of the woods to get their thoughts on things. If it's really a paperwork issue, if it gets that high up there, I'll call our risk management department to see what their thoughts are, which I usually know the answer to those. But that's my initial thoughts when it comes to things like safety, especially when it comes to like bailouts and such.
Yeah, Aaron, I want to kick it over to you. What are some of your thoughts? We talked about all those foundational skills, right? But when we do get to some of the higher risk type of stuff, when you're out conducting training in an organization that has brought you and your group in, what are some of your thoughts as it relates to safety and belays and tying people off and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it's years ago we did it without safeties at times, and we weren't as safety conscious as we probably should have been, and we were lucky. We didn't drop anybody. We didn't get anybody injured. Through all the RIT training and all the survival training I've done, I know of one injury, and it was actually in my own volunteer fire department, and it was a guy who just would not listen, and absolutely did it to himself. 4 or 5 good instructors were right there watching him, and he just wouldn't listen. As times changed, I'm really careful. I belay anybody off if they're going out a window. If we're doing bailout training, if we're doing You know, my firehouse actually has one of the main bailout props for our department. We belay everybody. It's just not worth the injury and training. The problem with it is it does give them that extra level of confidence that wouldn't be there if there wasn't that belay line, like knowing, hey, but then again, maybe that's the plus because it gets them out the window the first couple times, gives them that, okay, now I can do this. Same thing with bringing victims down ladders, things like that in RIT scenarios. You know, there's the big questions of can you use live victims? Can't you use live victims? You know, dummies and things like that only bend a certain way. It doesn't give you reality. It absolutely doesn't give you reality. I wouldn't say that I'm against a live victim, but if you're going to use one, you've got to put them on a belay line. They've got to be in a safe position. You can't take the chance of ruining somebody's life, God forbid, or their career in these types of drills. And I'm seeing it happen again. And we are again, we have the interior exterior debates. We have the tough guy versus the sit on the curb fireman debates. This is coming into RIT and survival training just like everything else. So I'm seeing this hard charging, well, we're tough, we do it this way, and they're getting guys hurt. I know of a training company that just got another guy hurt on a bailout class. There was no reason for it. So we have to temper it. We have to make sure that we're not causing a bigger problem, but maintaining as much reality as possible. So yeah, belay lines, I think you have to do it. I think you really have to do it. And then there's a bunch of other stuff we could talk about, but that answers that question, I think.
Yeah. So, and one thing I'll tag onto that real quick, Aaron, and you brought up the concept of live victims, and as it relates to live victims for some of these removal drills and stuff like that, and I agree 100%. And just to add something onto that for anybody tuning in that's like I said earlier, maybe trying to establish a RIT training program or not quite sure which direction to go or how to do that. One thing to keep in mind, and you don't have to search very hard to find a couple of case studies on this. Be very, very cautious, and I say that gently. Just don't do it bluntly. Using live victims in terms of structure fire burns, right? Whether that be in an acquired structure or whether that be in a concrete training structure, live firefighters acting as victims in a live fire scenario is an absolute 1403 no-no.
Yeah.
And there are a couple of case studies and firefighters that have had unfortunate circumstances that have led to some of that stuff. And so we need to be very, very cautious about that. If you want to do firefighter, if you want to do movement and things like that of down firefighters in a zero visibility condition, use fake smoke, right? Use a smoke machine or something like that, or blacked out masks or something along those lines, to where we're not putting a firefighter under live fire conditions in a RIT scenario ever. That should be an absolute no-no.
That happened here in Jersey. That's one of the reasons we have 1403. And in New York State, there guys did prison time because of it. That's an absolute. But I can tell you, just the Denver drill alone, I've seen so many injuries because it was either taught wrong or it was push, 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 go, 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 and we're beating on the students. And I've seen injuries because of that in a drill that, yes, it's a good drill. Yes, it challenges our skills and our physical abilities. But the reality of that drill is it happened in Denver. How many other times does it happen when there's a lot of other drills that we can spend our time that may be a little bit more realistic or may actually occur a little more often? I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but that's the type of drill where the shoulder injuries happen, the back injuries. I have a good friend. She's a tough firefighter. She went off the job on permanent disability, tore her shoulder out doing a Denver drill. And the instructors were pushing her hard. So there's that level too. I want to let the rest of you guys talk, but I'd be really remiss if I didn't just throw this out there with 20 minutes or so left. I learned my RIT instruction skills, honestly, in the 90s from guys who I think are kind of the fathers of it. And I know you guys know these names, but I'm throwing them out there because I've said this in the past. These guys have developed things for us. It's important for those who are listening to guys like us who are a little older and been around to understand where we got it from. So, my first RIT class was from Butch Cobb in Jersey City. And Butch really, really developed it. And from Butch, it went to Jim Crawford, who is still, in my opinion, one of the greatest RIT instructors I've ever seen. And RIT, He lived through Bryceland Street. He lived through church collapse in Pittsburgh, and is still at FDIC, put on a great presentation on it again this year. And I was fortunate as a young fireman. My department sent me out to Illinois Fire Service Institute to the Saving Our Own program. Unbelievable program that so many places have tried to really kind of copy off of that because it's just so good. And finally, I went, I think it was probably in like 02, 03, I don't even know. I went to Fire Department Training Network and took Jimmy McCormick's Saving Our Own and Survival Train the Trainer. And that's where I developed my stuff. And we wrote the curriculum for New Jersey to train by. And it was great right up until the bureaucrats in Trenton got a hold of it. And, well, we shouldn't do this or maybe we shouldn't do that. And they were guys who've never made a RIT grab or crawled down a hallway. So we've got to throw that stuff out there because this training is that damn important. And I've been seeing on social media guys that, well, if I stretch a line right and just make sure that I've got my line in the right place, I'll never need it. Bullshit. That's just, you know, that's pie in the sky thinking. Yeah, you can be a great engine guy. You can be a great truck guy. You can do everything right. And every one of us on this panel and everybody watching knows that it can still go wrong. So I just wanted to get that in there.
You know, I can't, Aaron. I can't. Maybe somebody else remembers it. It was within the past year. I remember seeing some 100% solid RIT grab, and from some fire. I forget where in the country it was, but it was all over the fire service press to where something went wrong. It was a disorientation or a loss or something, and the RIT team was Johnny on the spot, and they absolutely made the grab. So yeah, I mean, there's certainly for anybody that wants to give, you know, any kind of argument or case or argument or information that it's not that important, we can certainly counter that very easily with a number of case studies where it absolutely was important and absolutely made a difference. And yeah, I agree. Chief Carroll, I want to kick it back over to you. So we discussed some safety issues, if you've got any thoughts on that. And then what I was hoping to maybe roll into a little bit was physical capabilities in terms of props and things like that, and get everybody's thoughts on that. So safety and or props, what are you going to talk about, Chief?
I'll go back to the belay line. One of the things I like about the belay line is that allows the students to just worry about the technique. They don't have to worry about falling off a ladder if we're doing a ladder bail or falling out of a window. They can worry about hand placement and doing it right. So I think it's a must-have kind of thing. Again, that just lets them concentrate on doing the right thing. As far as training goes, I think one of the things we have to, that crawl, walk, run thing that we do with other techniques and other training ideas, I think we need to make sure that what we're teaching them is they're getting some success on what we're teaching. I know a lot of times we like to cram, we like to make the scenario so tough that nobody can do it. Then they're going to be like, well, I can't even do this. You know, how can I complete this? Even in training, I run out of air, or, you know, we die in training. So I think we have to do that. We have to show them that this is going to work. These are the skills we want you to do. And then we add that stress and that other, you know, what ifs into the drill. That's it. Props. I mean, you can get some really basic props, right? We built back in '99, we were doing some training. We built, basically looks like a cattle chute, right? And at one end of it is a window prop that you can do a Denver drill, or you can do a low window hang. And then on the one side of it, there's some kick through prop with with reduced profile, and you can put drywall in it. And then on the way down through the cattle chute is entanglement. It's really good for survival basics, but I can also put a firefighter in there. And I'd like to use the live firefighter, because one of the things I think we miss is everybody loves live fire. Everybody loves that kind of stuff, but then you can't use a real victim. You can't use a real guy. And one of the important things we have to do is maintain air. So if I can put one of our firefighters in the prop, and then the rescue team goes and rescues him, they have to make sure that they get the RIT bottle on them and they maintain the air throughout the rescue. But again, these are, you know, basic skills that we'll build up to. And you can build you can have a really basic, easy prop that you can throw in the middle of the firehouse, middle of the apparatus floor, and really tax your people. And then you can get more elaborate. I saw If you guys saw the drilling at the speed of flashover class that they had at FDIC, and they built some pretty elaborate props. I think they had a floor collapse. They had a stairway collapse. So you can get pretty elaborate when it comes to that. But I think that you don't need to. You can stay with the basics and keep the guys, kind of those kinds of things and reinforce the RIT pack, reinforce the search rope, reinforce all those things in a basic drill with basic props.
Yeah, and great stuff, Chief. And one other, and I, at risk of being the 1403 nerd, one more thing I'll add on, and I believe I'm correct on this. Correct me, any of you, if I'm not. But I believe 1403 even prohibits any dummy being dressed in fire gear as part of the evolution as well. Because I know there was some issues with mannequins being mistaken for real people and vice versa in some case studies over the years. And so not only can we not really do live fire victims in fire gear, but we're not even supposed to have mannequins dressed in fire gear under live fire conditions, just because of the possibility, albeit small, because of that possibility of mistaking a real firefighter for a firefighter that's a mannequin firefighter. So again, when it comes to some of the zero viz stuff that we want to do for RIT, you really probably should be leaning towards just the candy smoke or the fake smoke. But anyway, just a random thing that popped into my head as you were talking, Chief. So Aaron, I want to get back.
We'll go back to that, Brad, real quick. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
you know all the technology that's available now. We can add.
Sorry, Tony, I could not hear. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Hey, Aaron, I know we're still having a couple of weird little technical things. Tony had a little bit of an add-on point, and then I'll kick it right back to you, brother.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Yeah, you can really do a good job replicating. Again, we're not going to have the heat, but we can put there's those the digital fire panels that we can add, so you can actually squirt water at a screen where it looks like fire. Again, we're not going to be able to add the heat and maybe the high heat stuff, but you can definitely add a lot of realism to your burn building and use a live victim, because I think, again, it's so important that we maintain the RIT pack, we maintain the air. We could do that throughout the rescue.
All right, Aaron, I'm gonna kick it back over to you. What your thoughts on props, or really anything else you want to talk about with RIT training?
Okay, sorry I couldn't hear Tony, because I'm probably going to repeat some of the really good stuff that he threw out there, but technical difficulties. Anyway, so my bottom line with RIT is that if you're going to advertise yourself that you're doing it, or if your department is going to require you to do it, you've got to actually train on it, because this is not a skill, and this is not a skill set that just happens. This is a skill set that's truly developed. So you can be a really good engine person or a really good truck person, but you still need to develop these skills. And I think the basic drills, I really do think the basic movement drills, getting somebody up and down below grade to grade, getting somebody out a window. I like the article that was in Fire Engineering this month that Bob Foster from Montgomery, Maryland, and Dave Gallagher from out your way, retired from Huber and now works for Mass Fire Academy. They did one about, I think it's called the Rochester drill, where the firefighter is kind of stuck in the floorboards or in a roof situation or something of that. Those types of drills are real. And I like the idea that these drills are based on actual happenings that students can go back and look up. And I think that's really important. I think, like I said, building blocks are the key with these types of drills. Let's get it together. Let's get ourselves deployed. Let's get in and do searches together. Let's package the down firefighter. Let's move them up steps or down steps or whatever the case may be. And let's just make it as realistic as we possibly can. And in this case, normally under fake smoke conditions. That's the key. Obviously, we can do this under live fire conditions, but we can't use live victims. We're using dummies. And as you said, 1403 prohibits those live dummies to be dressed in any type of fire gear. And that goes back to a case study that I'm very familiar with, that some friends were involved in. So these are all important points. But if we just keep building on it and build on those foundational blocks, I think for the most part you're in good shape. Again, with this, a lot of guys want to take it to a tech level rescue type thing. And I understand the tech rescue aspects of it, but those aspects of it aren't as down and dirty. And if we can get the down and dirty skills, then we can build to the tech skills. A lot of times a simple ladder, a simple fulcrum, some rope or some webbing can do the trick, and we don't need to get too elaborate. And the other thing with that goes, if we're going to get elaborate, pre-rigged systems are the way to go. If guys think you're going to be building systems under heat and smoke and things going really bad and your heart rate screaming, guess again. So my last little point with that is, as a guy who teaches survival and RIT all over the place, and I'm a student of it, our good buddy Rick George and Bob Carpenter just sent me their book. Rick sent me a crayon to go with it because he knew how I would take notes, that firemen need crayons instead of sharp pencils. He didn't want me to hurt myself. But just something like this, controlling the mind. When it's RIT and survival, if you can't control your mind, all the other shit doesn't matter because it's going to go out the window. So I'm going to be reading intently in the next few days this and putting it into my training. So
yeah, it's interesting, Aaron, as you kind of alluded to there, and having the right mindset and realizing that that's going to be an incredibly stressful event. One of those things where it may happen once, twice, maybe never in your entire career, right? But at that moment, you're either going to put up or shut up, right? You're either going to be one of the ones that took that stuff seriously and trained on it and made it a priority in your career, or you're going to end up with that dud team that's going to fumble their way through, and geez, you hope you weren't the one to have the Mayday that day, right? So yeah, great stuff, and I'd love to read that book as well. That looks like it's going to be fantastic. So as we kind of start to creep towards the end here, Steve, I want to kick it back over to you, having just finished all of that RIT training. What are some of your wrap-up thoughts on a training officer maybe tuning in that's getting ready to start a program like you just did, running an entire department through RIT training?
Okay, well, like any one of these we do, I think the double-edged sword with it is we get started on these conversations and we just want to keep going. We could be here all day with like-minded folk, training geeks like us. We could talk about this all day. So I'll try to keep this real short. To answer your question, if you got to develop something like this, first thing is first, the culture. The culture. We were talking about this in Chief Halton's class today about the culture, and the concept of failure came up. You mentioned the Denver drill. Some people can't complete the Denver drill. I think that one of the things, looking back, I would remind people that, guys, listen, whether you finish or not, you're going to be learning the entire process. If you can't complete the Denver drill when it comes to you, when it's into this RIT drill or this course, if you run out of air, listen, it's okay. I want that to happen. I want you to see and realize going through this what your limitations are. That's part of this whole thing. It's not a competition to see who can finish first. It's not about that. It's about the learning that comes along with it, the little things, the self-awareness issue. Like, oh, I should carry lineman's pliers in my pocket to cut that wire. I don't have a pair. Or, man, they put a forcible entry prop in front of there. I haven't forced a door in 2 years. Oh, my God, I need to work on that. So there's a lot of awareness issues that come up during a drill like this. So first things first, the culture has to be set first. They have to realize that, no, you're not going to be ridiculed if you don't know what you're doing, or if you're not as sharpened on some of these skills as possible. We're here to help you. We're here to learn. So when this does happen, you're that much more prepared. So first thing is culture. Then, as we talked about before, get the etiquette down first. Make sure they're comfortable, at least comfortable with using the equipment you're going to give them, so that during the drill, they're not focused on all the things they don't know. Oh, I got to do this drill as well. No, they're focused on the task at hand. Somebody calls Mayday. They're the RIT team. Handle it. Oh, well, let me learn how to use this. No. So we got to go over the etiquette portion first. It's like you said before, the walk or the crawl, walk, run. That is essential to a drill, as important as a RIT operation. So those are the things that come to mind when we talk about this. The last thing I'll say is the communications aspect. I mean, just watching a few of these drills in the beginning, the communications, people on air that are crews working together on a regular basis. Even though they're working together on a regular basis, you put them in a mask, you put them in gear, they're on air. You watch that communication breakdown starting to happen. This is a good thing, because now they're having to communicate and learn how to do that. Talking through their mask, radio, where's my radio, so on and so forth. So those are the things that pop up in my head. But yeah, the culture, making sure they understand it's a learning culture, not a culture that's going to make fun of you, don't know what you're doing. Get the etiquette down before getting to the meat of the drill. And communications is always huge.
That's great stuff, Chief, and congratulations to you and your organization for just getting the whole lot of them through some excellent RIT training. That sounds like some great stuff. I'd love to have seen it. Chief Carroll, we'll kick it over to you. What are some final thoughts on RIT training?
Again, firefighter survival starts with the basics. What else you said? Oh, you said be the RIT team you would want to come rescue you. I think that should drive the point home to everybody, and that's it, right? Just we have a lot of things we have to drill on. We need you to continue to drill on all the other things, but you also need to make sure you're adding these firefighter rescue skills to your training in the month, to your monthly training. Again, I'm asking maybe you could set aside your Mondays to emphasize firefighter rescue training. And then your Tuesdays could be Truck Tuesday. Wednesday could be Water Wednesday. But just do something and make sure that you're ready, because, again, we can't predict when this is going to happen, and it could be your next run. So make sure you're prepared.
Well, that's great stuff, and some good conversation today. We did end up getting to, as we finish out our last couple of minutes here, we didn't end up getting to a whole lot of firefighter survival stuff. So maybe we'll look at that and line up a few guests to talk about firefighter survival stuff, kind of the get out alive type of things, the bailouts and the Maydays, and some of the data that goes along with that, the study that Don Abbott's been doing over the past several years. A whole nother big topic to talk about there. Maybe we'll do that another month coming up soon. So I really appreciate everybody tuning in. Many thanks, as always, to Fire Engineering and Clarion and the ISFSI and Editor-in-Chief Bobby Holton for giving us all this opportunity. On behalf of Aaron Heller and Steve Shaw and Tony Carroll, thank you very much for tuning in. Everybody have a great day, and we will see you back here the first Wednesday of next month for another Focus on Training.